Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be the astro weather for August 20th through the 27th of 2023. Happy Sunday to those of you guys who are watching on Sunday. Obviously, this is going to be our weekly video where we take a look at what transits are taking place for the week ahead and kind of assess the astrological weather. Lots of stuff going on this week. There's stuff going on every week, I know, but this week in particular, there's a couple interesting patterns that are setting up in the skies. As a reminder to those of you guys who are new to my channel, I'm a Western astrologer. I work both with tarot as well as the Sabian symbols to assess what's going on out in the cosmos. You can catch me here on Tuesday and Thursday midweek, and we're going to take deeper dives into some of these transits. Just as a reminder for everybody, Mercury will be going retrograde this week. So we've already been in the shadow for quite some time now. Mercury will be turning retrograde in Virgo. And to be honest with you, I'm not so worried about it. I think that the Mercury retrograde is exceptionally helpful. We're going to see a number of aspects between Mercury and Jupiter, helping us kind of learn something new. And retrogrades are like periods where we have to kind of clean out the fridge, get everything kind of, in better working order, better organized and cleaned up. I did put a video out on Mercury retrograde in Virgo, so make sure you check that out. That's been out for a little while. But essentially with retrogrades, right, what we want to do is we want to back up computers, create a little bit of buffer time, double and triple check anything that we're going to be scheduling, including meetings or travel. Especially with Mercury being in a sign that is ruled by Mercury, Virgo can be about health, it can be about our to-do list, and just staying on task and being efficient. So I encourage you guys to work with this Mercury retrograde and look for some of the cosmic goodies as Mercury has connections with Jupiter out in the skies. We're also going to see the sun entering into Virgo, so that's also doubling down. Kind of interesting aspects, right when the sun's going into Virgo and we're starting Virgo season. We see the sun start building into an opposition with Saturn, and then we see Mercury turn retrograde. So there's a lot of Mercury themes out in the skies, quite a few oppositions actually between analytical, mutable earth sign of Virgo and the mutable water sign of Pisces. And it's really where we're trying to kind of get our own things in order so we're not feeling a little kind of out to lunch or discombobulated. The weather's a little funky with some of the Mars-Neptune opposition as well. I keep asking myself, like, whose war is this that we're fighting, or whose responsibility is this when it comes to getting something done? So you guys might feel a little bit of like lower energy with Mars and Neptune in opposition. And then eventually we're going to see Mars actually move into Libra later in the week. This will be the first kind of me touching on that particular transit. I'm going to do a deeper dive probably on Tuesday, and I'll take you guys through all of the Mars transits, but I really just want to keep this video to this week. Now there was a phrase that I heard somebody talking about on a YouTube video earlier this week that kind of like stuck with me. Yeah, it was essentially the YouTuber was talking about holding people's feet to the fire. I don't know if you've heard that term. It's kind of like an old school phrase, which really kind of, interested me and made me think about that phrase and like its origins, like where it comes from. So I wrote it down and I was like, okay, that seems like really significant right now. I'm gonna marinate on that. So I did a little research into the phrase holding their feet to the fire. Essentially, it's a term that means putting pressure on someone or holding them accountable for their actions or a promise. It's often used metaphorically to imply that someone is being closely scrutinized or facing intense scrutiny. Now, the historical reference of this phrase is not entirely clear, but it is believed to have originated from medieval torture methods. In medieval times, people accused of crimes were sometimes subject to torture as a means of extracting confessions or information. So one of the methods that was involved was strapping the accused person to a wooden bench and placing their feet near fire or hot coals. The heat would cause, obviously, pain and discomfort, sometimes leading the person to confess to providing information under duress. A special note is that in medieval Europe, trial by ordeal was a trial based on the premise that God would help the innocent by performing a miracle to save the accused. One such trial was that the accused feet was held to the fire. And if they were unburned or they were healed within 3 days after being held to the fire, it was taken as a sign that God had intervened on their behalf, thereby proving their innocence. Of course, most either confessed to the crimes which they were accused or died as a result of the trial. This was well documented during the Spanish Inquisition, which then replaced the medieval Inquisition down the road. Anyway, over time, right, this practice obviously, thankfully, has kind of died off. But we still have the phrase, holding their feet to the fire, which retains the concept of applying this pressure or discomfort to something or someone in order to elicit a response or an action. Obviously, the phrase can be used in a variety of different contexts, including politics, business, and personal relationships, to describe situations where individuals or entities are held accountable for their words or their actions. So you're probably like, why are you telling me about this like horrific medieval torture technique? Essentially, in my mind, there are some transits that are going to be setting up this week that is about holding their feet to the fire. So you can do with, with that phrase what you will, but Pisces is the feet, right? So if you look at the zodiac signs and how it rules all of the different parts of the body, Aries to Pisces would be the head to the feet. I'm looking at all of these placements that are currently in Pisces, and I'm thinking about how the sun in Leo, hello, what's going on with this? There we go. I'm thinking about how the sun in Leo is coming into and in conjunct, okay, with both Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn. And there's some interesting aspects to this. I mean, this is the degree, the sun is going to hit the degree in which the Venus retrograde started in Leo just last month, turned retrograde 27, 28 degrees. So it was just short of going to the last degrees and having that conjunction to Regulus. So whenever you're looking at an in conjunct, right, this 150 degree angle, it represents almost like a blind spot or something that's agitating, an itch that you can't scratch. So you would say that, Pisces and Leo in this angle don't have a lot in common. And it's really interesting, especially considering you've got both of these planets in their ruling sign, so they're particularly strong. And then we've got Pluto that's also on the other side of this angle in conjunct the sun. So Neptune about this collective undoing, right? The things that are going on secretly in the shadows, the things that are going on spiritually, the collective mourning, the sadness, the things that are kind of dissolving and falling apart. And then Pluto in Capricorn, what almost seems like this brutal breakdown that's going on when it comes to leaders and government, right? Capricorn top-down structures. These two planets are in a sextile again, so they're working together. And when we have both of these in conjuncts to one particular focal point, which would be the sun, it's creating this yod, also known as a finger of fate, a finger of God. It's a fateful aspect. I talked about my Venus retrograde video, and I talked about, I know during my webinar, that this is such a critical point, both because this is where the Venus retrograde begins, and I think that it's showing us through Hollywood, celebrities, children, younger people, stars, celebrities, Leo-related things, even leaders, where something's not right, something's off, something's kind of suspicious, it's a little fishy, especially the in conjunct to Neptune, and where younger people are showing us where there could be a great deal of corruption. Fun fact, the FBI is ruled by Pluto. Capricorn is about the government. And then Neptune, obviously, can talk about viruses and illnesses and secret societies and things that go on behind closed doors, immigration, news coming out this week, hearing more about, the fact that there are more children than anticipated being found, unfortunately, dead after the fires in Hawaii. Apparently, let's just say they're called camps that are being found, just along the Texas border, apparently, migrant camps with children. I think we're going to be hearing a lot in regards to where children, or people in high society, leaders, are starting to show their corruption. Okay, just some of the stuff going on, you know, with Biden and his son getting off with taxes. Sun in quincunx to Pluto in Capricorn. So you're going to see that some of this stuff is being unveiled in this next week. As the sun is coming into in conjunct with Pluto. It's really starting today, and also Neptune, and it's going to go for a couple of days, really until the sun goes into Virgo. Now, in your own life, you want to take a look at, you know, what's been happening with the Venus retrograde. Look at the house where Venus has been retrograding. Venus really kind of highlighted this particular issue. She turned retrograde at this degree, so she was going back over this degree for a reason, perhaps showing you that there was something that wasn't quite hitting the spot, or a relationship or a financial related issue that needed to be kind of reworked. And so now here comes the sun to kind of bring this up again. But the reason why I bring up this phrase, holding their feet to the fire, is because Leo is fire. It's the element of fire. The sun burns, right? It's bringing attention. It's bringing some kind of action, or it's putting something on center stage, putting the pressure on the collective, I think, power struggles, or things where, you know, power and, you know, tyranny is kind of taking place out in the world, and also putting pressure on exposing the things that Neptune is withholding. Everything's retrograde, or at least about to be. You know, we're going to see Jupiter's going to turn retrograde soon. Uranus is going to turn retrograde soon. You guys are going to see the next month or two. Things are still going to feel very slow. But when we have these, you know, big, bad outer planets, which are retrograde, there is still a lot that has yet to be unveiled. So as we start to see these planets go direct later in the year, we have the opportunity to see what's being worked on, right? During these particular times right now. So look at Leo in your chart. The sun coming into this yod involving Neptune and Pluto is showing you where there's some kind of event or something that is kind of breaking out that needs to be seen, that may help dissolve some of the murkiness or the breakdown or the confusion in both Pisces and Capricorn. Okay. All right. So besides that, you know, when we look at the rest of the week, like I said, obviously this is taking place now. We're going to see that in conjunct over the next couple days. As you guys are watching this on Sunday, so the 20th, hello to my Sunday crew. Thank you guys for joining me. We wake up and the moon is in Libra. Okay, so that's putting an emphasis on relationships, partnerships, harmony. We do see that Venus is the ruler. Venus is obviously still retrograde. We're really starting to feel the return of the Venus square Jupiter, so that can be bringing up the feelings of overdoing it. So we might feel like there is this excessive need to, you know, participate in relationships, to have love, to have relationships, and, you know, togetherness with other people, but it could be overspending, overly affectionate, overly sweet, over the top. And this retrograde represents a turning point, right? So as I'm creating this video, we've definitely seen the downturn recently in the stock market that I think that we kind of anticipated was going to happen. But perhaps this starts feeling much bigger. The fact that maybe a lot of people were betting on things going in the opposite direction, and, you know, retrogrades bring reversals. So some people might be really reflecting on how much they've invested into a relationship, a hobby, a financial situation, and kind of feeling a little bit of like that crunch. Now, but the moon being in Libra, it does make for a more pleasurable experience. Something you're going to see off the bat is that the moon is going to be in a sextile with Venus, so that's nice. It does allow us to socialize more and kind of connect with other people. But in the background today and going into tomorrow, you are feeling this in conjunct. And so, you know, I can only explain it by, I've said this several times, I've heard this from a number of like friends and clients, people being like, I have this funny feeling, like it kind of feels like the other shoe's about to drop. And we know that like Leo is very like lights, camera, action. So I definitely feel like there can be some things that are kind of brewing today into tomorrow that is bringing up some really big emotions, some really big feelings. Venus is what we open up to. It's like a flower. So we can be having some really strong emotional reactions to things that are fluctuating and changing in our relationships, our friendships, our financial situations. Now we're going to see we're going to see the moon be moving through Libra all day. And one thing that really kind of piqued my interest is when the moon later in the afternoon starts coming into a conjunction with Ceres, which can be bringing up some challenging emotions revolving around separation or revolving around what we need in terms of nurturing. We might be craving, right, emotionally needing some kind of support from partnerships, yearning for another person, wanting to have togetherness. And then the moon is going to come into an opposition with Chiron. So I could definitely see, as the moon is coming into this conjunction and approaching the south node, we're starting to realize where just having somebody around doesn't necessarily make us feel better, or maybe we're starting to kind of realize or recognize like, yes, it's nice to have someone, but a lot of people may be feeling as if, you know, if I'm in a dynamic where I'm hanging out with a group of friends or I'm with a partner and I'm assuming I'm going to get that feeling of closeness or togetherness or companionship, you may realize it's not quite hitting the spot, and some people may still kind of feel a little lonely or a little disconnected. And that moon is going to reflect back with the opposition to Chiron, where if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing on an individual level, if we're not working on ourselves, if we are maybe making personal sacrifices or, you know, getting insecure about being alone and throwing ourselves into social dynamics, relationship dynamics, because we want security, we may still feel like, oh, it feels disjointed. So watch for that tonight. That can definitely happen. I do think that the sextile to Venus is supporting. It does let us know that, you know, art and music and a little bit of playtime can be something that can really heal and alleviate some of these, you know, emotional kind of fluctuations that can be taking place. That's pretty much for today. You're going to keep seeing the moon moving through Libra. It's going to be doing that all evening. It will come into a conjunction with the south node Monday morning. So on the 21st in the morning, pay attention, because anytime the moon makes aspects to the nodes, because the nodes are associated with Libra, with the moon, you're going to be feeling the effects of like something breaking down or something kind of getting cleared out. Now, we're still looking at Venus. And so what's going to be interesting on the 21st is this is when we're starting to feel the square again, although the square doesn't look like it's going to be happening until closer to Tuesday, but still by degree, it is already squaring Jupiter. So that is at a degree that deals with Gemini. So communication, ideas, sharing. And, you know, the other side of this is that Jupiter deals, especially in Taurus, with laws revolving around resources, laws revolving around payment, abundance, food, land, things involving what we possess. So I'm wondering what's going to be happening. You know, this particular Venus-Jupiter square really started back in mid-June. So you want to go back and look at what was happening with that particular square in mid-June. And it really kind of mirrors some of the back and forth that's been going on with some of these strikes involving, you know, Hollywood. Venus can be about artists and creative and performing, you know, arts, and the square to Jupiter and Uranus has been about, you know, this forward motion, this innovation with AI. So I'm wondering if there's going to be more potential opening to negotiations, but likely, you know, as Venus is squaring Jupiter, it's like, no, laws need to change, negotiations need to change. We may be changing our philosophy revolving around money and resources as well. But anyway, the moon conjunct the south node is going to feel like this emotional purge. It's going to feel like an emotional clearing, like a breakdown. This can be collectively, right? Because the moon represents the people. that we're all going through this emotional fluctuation. We are having to reflect on what we have to actually emotionally maybe let go or cut ties with. People may be getting very sentimental about actually losing people, or having to give things away, or about having to, have less resources. And I definitely think, because rich or wealthy people can also be Jupiter, this can also be this turning point for some people who feel like they've been more so blessed and a little bit more stable financially, realizing that some of the effects going on economically may affect them as well. And so it's one thing for people who have already been kind of living on, the brink of having some challenges financially, who are used to kind of living beneath their means. But for people who have been wealthy and they have been stable and they have had the resources they need, this particular square, I think, can be a rude awakening that's just like, even they may not potentially be safe. So something about the resources seem threatened with this to me. But Moon South Node can be, emotions coming up revolving around relationship drama and emotional things involving partnerships, and kind of clearing it all out, right? You are going to see, when the moon is conjunct the South Node, which is going to be happening in the morning, there's some interesting stuff going on. The moon is also in an opposition to the North Node. So it's basically saying we have to kind of clear out all of these stuffy emotions, and like where something is not really working emotionally. At the same time, when the moon opposes the North Node, which is ruled by Mars, Mars is in conjunct the North Node, and it's in opposition to Neptune. It's in that building opposition to Neptune. For me, it's materialized as a lot of like things that I know that feel off, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know, maybe you feel the same. Or it's also been things that I'm like, yeah, I know this thing has to go, but like I've been reluctant to make the change, or I've been reluctant to take the action. You may feel this as well this week. Like I said, some confusing energies definitely with Mars in opposition to Neptune, because Mars wants a direct path forward. It wants to know what action it has to take, what it has to fight, what it's got to kind of cut or sever or work on. And Neptune is very avoidant. So I think that some people may be realizing, especially those who are used to counting on others, or expecting their partner to give them, the directions forward, or expecting the therapist to have the answers, or the boss to tell you what to do. We may feel that there's a bit of breakdown in support with other people, and then we go, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, tell me how to handle this situation. And I think the Mars quincunx, the North Node, is a lot of having to find your own path, having to kind of find your own way, and learning to be resourceful. Now, we will see that the moon is going to start coming into a square with Pluto. So that in itself also feels very South Node-y. That's like, oh, something's breaking down, something's got to go. When the moon comes into a square with Pluto, we feel emotionally under pressure. We have to change something. Something feels a little threatened. And the moon in Libra, which represents changes and fluctuations with partnerships. The square to Pluto in Capricorn, which represents some kind of collective power structure, or, official, or some kind of looming, situation, or power in our life, some kind of shadow related issue, definitely brings up some emotion. So Monday morning into the afternoon, y'all are going to feel it. I find it interesting that it's right when the sun comes into that 28 degrees and it quincunxes Pluto. At least we have the sun and the moon in a sextile, and the moon is just getting ready to come into its first quarter square here pretty soon. But yeah, all Monday morning looks emotionally like a bit of a roller coaster, in my opinion. The moon is then going to move into Scorpio, so then we're taking a look at Mars, we're taking a look at Pluto. We've got some interesting Mars-Pluto stuff that's setting up during this particular transit. When the moon is in Scorpio, so this will be early evening on Monday, we focus on clearing, detoxing, purging. Well, thankfully, right off the bat, you just got done coming out of that. So that's been kind of brewing all day in the background on Monday. And then the moon goes into Scorpio, and we are dealing with the darker side of things. We're dealing with the shadow. We're working through crisis. We can feel a little emotional, a little sensitive, a little paranoid. But the moon is going to continue to move through Scorpio, and it's going to start coming into a trine with Saturn. And that's going to be early morning on Tuesday, the 22nd. So it'll be happening early in the morning, but still that's emotionally stabilizing, you know, kind of, you know, getting a little bit more so solid in the early AM hours. And then when we're waking up on Tuesday, we're going to begin to start to see the Venus square Jupiter in full effect, although I'm pretty sure you guys will be feeling it today and tomorrow. So especially if you're a Venus based chart, so Taurus rising, Libra rising, or a Jupiterian chart, you know, Pisces rising, Sag rising, you're kind of feeling that square. Go back and look at what was happening since mid-June, because I think there's been a lot of laying it on thick or spending money like it's going out of style, or a lot of big things going on in regards to the financial system. I, for one, am waiting for the truthful report to come out about just the state of where we're at with some of these banks, because there should be a number of banks that are already on the brink of having issues and potentially collapsing. I would assume news revolving around this can come through, and I actually really think it may happen on the 22nd or 23rd of August, because we're going to see the moon start coming into an opposition with Jupiter, and we're going to start seeing Venus squaring it. So because Venus becomes the focal point of that particular square, I've seen the Venus square Jupiter square Uranus as the stress test. And Jupiter Uranus definitely, I think, is still kind of mirroring the bits and pieces of the issues with inflation. But for me, it's going to be right here. Let me go back a little bit here. So we're going to see, while the moon is in Scorpio, we're looking at Pluto. Okay, so Mars is moving into a trine with Pluto. We're going to see that a little bit later. We are seeing the sun quincunx Pluto, so there is some kind of, you know, itch that we can't scratch, something that's disjointed. It feels like a bit of a blind spot, something going on in Leo involving, you know, creative people, leaders, something that's trying to push something about some kind of collective limitation or some kind of power grab out into the forefront. And we look at Mars, because Mars traditionally rules Scorpio, and Mars is coming into this opposition with Neptune. Guys, Mars is so important because Mars is the ruler of the North Node. So Mars coming into that opposition with Neptune means that we've got people going out, trying to assist, trying to help. I think of Mars as like people who are making donations, trying to get food to help, you know, people in need. We've got a lot of people that are being displaced right now because of fires. It's not just in Hawaii. We're also seeing this in parts of Canada. We're seeing this in Spain. We're seeing this all over. I mean, the new moon in Leo conjunct, you know, the sun and the moon conjunct square Uranus, quite literally, is everything is just blowing up, right? So, you know, we're seeing this now. Mars wanting to get in, wanting to help. Could be that people are trying to donate resources or services, but the opposition to Neptune is, you know, where are they really going, right? Be very careful with donating money and resources, because you want to make sure you're finding like an actual legitimate source for, you know, people who are going to be making sure that the donations are getting to the people who really need it, that they're going to have access to it. It's been really disheartening to see what's being put out in the media in regards to some of the stuff with Hawaii versus people who live there, that are on the ground, that are regularly reporting, and they're doing it through TikTok, through Twitter. They're doing it through all of these independent, you know, social media sites, being like, FEMA's not allowing us to have access to donations, finding out that water is being shut off, finding out that they're shutting down, you know, food donations. And a lot of local residents very discouraged about the fact that they're not getting what they need. I think a lot of this is the building, you know, Mars trine Pluto. Oh, we're helping, we're doing everything we can, we're being of service, but that's contradicting things that you're seeing on other screens, Neptune. because Mars is about action and being of service in Virgo, and Neptune is about being like, hi, we're not being seen, or we're not getting, you know, assistance or help, you're going to see a lot of conflicting stuff. You're also going to see some issues with people who are making sacrifices and wanting to look like they're jumping in and they're helping, but it could be for ulterior motives. A lot of times with Mars opposed Neptune, there can also be questions revolving around, you know, what's going on with military mobilization, or with anything in regards to like armies, or, you know, people kind of like moving around. So I question that, especially in regards to foreign related things. This opposition is going to take place, it looks like, at 26 degrees, which is a Taurus degree, it deals with money. So I'm wondering if, you know, the 22nd, the 23rd is going to be us hearing about, well, money going to Ukraine. I'm wondering if there's going to be a similar rhetoric that's going to start upticking about money going to Taiwan, or military training or assistance going with Taiwan, because this can be about foreign places. All right, so we're going to see Scorpio moon come into a square at 15 degrees. And this is going to be late in the evening on Tuesday the 22nd. So the moon in Scorpio opposes Jupiter, so expanded emotions and feelings, people responding strongly to some kind of change, some kind of crisis situation, the opposition to Jupiter in Taurus. I'm wondering if this is people, you know, having issues with insurance, having issues in regards to making sure that, you know, claims are paid, or that they're getting reimbursed for damages. Jupiter makes things bigger, right? And these are financial signs. But it's going to get caught up with a square to Venus. So this is another day that I would be watching. Tuesday night, I would be watching the after hours for the stock market, because likely there's going to be some news possibly that's going on in the evening hours that could potentially dramatically affect the market on open on Wednesday. Okay, so this is what we call a fixed T-square, and Venus is the focal point of the T-square, and Venus is the ruler of Jupiter and Uranus. So some kind of overnight potential, like, you know, rocks and rumbles in regards to the banking world. We're going to continue to see, even into Wednesday, the moon is going to keep moving through Scorpio, and we wake up in the morning and the sun is in Virgo. So it's the very beginning of Virgo season. We are going to see that the moon's going to keep going through Scorpio, and in the afternoon hours on Wednesday the 23rd, Mercury turns retrograde. So it'll be Wednesday afternoon that the Mercury retrograde begins. You guys know how this works, right? So you want to be reading all the details of things you're signing, double and triple check travel, back up your hard drives, know that we can have issues of communications, glitches with computers. And Mercury is about commerce and travel and business and data and information. And so the retrograde in itself is about Mercury backtracking, going and retrieving information, or getting something from the past, or revealing something. Particularly strong considering that we've got 3 planets in Virgo when Mercury retrogrades. So this is a very particular combing through things with a fine-tooth comb, bringing up topics from the past pertaining to these things. Virgo is healthcare, it's helpers, assistants. It's also going to be about animals or pets. It's going to be about the service industry. So hospitality, restaurants, bartenders, the service industry, all of this stuff is going to kind of be brought up, and there's going to be this slowdown effect with this retrograde. In my mind, this day is just so bizarre to me, because the very beginning of Virgo season starts with a retrograde, and Mercury stops short of conjuncting Mars. So it's almost as if, I mean, if you were just to look at this from the Aries rising perspective, you know, the 6th house can be seen as accidents and illness. I mean, that is the other side of the 6th house. And so where there is something that's turning or returning or coming back, that is about health. Now, call me crazy, but I personally believe, I'm not saying I believe that this is real or true, but I personally believe that I think we're going to see a return to the rhetoric of, oh, there's another variant, everybody's getting sick, we need to watch out. I think we're going to hear some of this, especially in the fall, September and October, okay? We are not going to come out of this Mercury retrograde shadow until early October. And when this retrograde begins, it's happening as Mercury is in a slight opposition to Neptune. And even though Mercury is strong in this sign, Neptune is also strong in Pisces. So you're going to see more polarity of people who go, well, let's stay organized, let's take care of our health, let's make sure that we're keeping an eye on things, let's eat well, let's stay active, let's really just monitor it, see how it goes, let's be practical. And then you're going to see the other side of the spectrum with Neptune and Saturn retrograde in Pisces, where you're going to see some people who are going to go, lock everything down, like, take your boosters, like, it's the end of the world, we're going to see another wave of this, and you're going to see a lot of hysteria. I don't like saying that, but I would rather just kind of keep it real with you guys, because we've got a pretty good track record so far with a lot of the stuff that I said was going to happen. The key here is common sense and not jumping to conclusions, especially with the oppositions to Neptune. If there is something that is coming up that's meant to isolate you or scare you or divide you, I would be weary. It doesn't matter what the topic is. I would be weary of all of those topics. And we really want to be practicing critical thinking skills, which is very easy to do when Mercury is in Virgo. But when it's retrograde in an opposition to Neptune, you're going to see a lot of polarity. Keep in mind also, by the way, in the United States chart, the United States has Neptune in Virgo. So we're going to see this Mercury retrograde going on through its natal, its natal Neptune, in opposition to transit Neptune. And it's kind of happening in the Placidus 9th and 3rd house. So could it be about our relations with other countries? Maybe. Could it be about changes in education? Sure. But I think it's going to be more revolving around media and what we think we know, or what information is starting to kind of come up in regards to the healthcare field. But what gets me is that this retrograde starts in conjunction to Mars. And Mars is about illness. It is about fevers. It can be about these things. And as the sun is coming into an opposition with Saturn, so you got two pretty strong oppositions, Mercury, Neptune. Can I believe that? Is it true? Is it not? What can I believe? What can I not believe? Sun opposed Saturn. Saturn represents, those who are in charge, or it represents leaders. It represents, even in the 12th house, shadow governments or global governments saying, oh, well, we're going to need to have some limitations. We're going to need to slow some things down. So I would watch for that. That is concerning, at least for me personally, and freaks me out going out and seeing some people that are wearing masks at the gym. I'm not a doctor, but it just seems a little bizarre to me. So we're going to keep seeing the moon go through Scorpio. The retrograde begins, and here's where things get a little hairy. It's going to be Wednesday night, so maybe you're going to kind of just skate by. Maybe you're asleep. But this will be the first quarter square here. So this will be early in the morning on the 24th, on Thursday. Moon goes into Sagittarius, immediately comes into a square with the sun. When we see the sun and the moon square, in this case, it's the first quarter moon. So this is the first quarter moon since the new moon in Leo. So we're opening up to making some kind of change. The moon in Sag wants truth. It wants freedom. It wants travel. It wants the higher purpose. It is a Jupiterian energy. We see while this is happening, Jupiter is obviously still in Taurus. It's going to be going retrograde pretty soon, but not yet. And we're not really seeing any aspects to Jupiter. Now, the moon is going to come into a square with Saturn. So even as we get into the morning where I think people are up and kind of doing some stuff, if you're waking up in the morning on Thursday, the 24th, the moon square Saturn is like I can't open up, or I'm having a difficult time understanding or believing. Mutable squares, I will say, can be easier to navigate because they are the energy of change, but squares feel frustrating. And with the moon coming up in a square between Saturn and also the sun, I feel like this can be news involving like global relations among countries, something that is going to be about travel. And I do think that you're going to hear something about this because the moon's going to keep moving through Sagittarius the next day, and it's going to start hitting all this Virgo stuff over here while Mercury is retrograde. The positive is that now Mars is starting to come out of this confusing opposition to Neptune, and it's beginning to trine Pluto, which is powerful. It's really committed, it's dedicated, it's really focusing on being able to accomplish something and get something done. So with that being said, it can be wonderful for feeling like you can accomplish a task and that you have the necessary energy to be able to move through it. Maybe you realize that you had to earlier in the week take your time to work through getting a big job done or completing something or rearranging your schedule or making some changes or adjustments to your health. I think a lot of people are feeling this. It's very lethargic, like the energies of all these planets in Virgo in opposition to both Saturn and Neptune. I think a lot of people are exhausted. I think they're exhausted from the constant news cycle. I think they're exhausted from feeling like it's just one thing after another. And if there's any takeaway from this, it's that Saturn and Neptune now are retrograde, giving us the opportunity to go, okay, if we want to emotionally, spiritually, feel better, if we want to have better rest, if we want to be able to have more peace of mind, we have to Saturn cut back, limit things revolving around Pisces, drugs, fear, illusions, isolation. We have to stop staring into screens. We have to stop sitting in front of, video games. We have to stop just kind of like binging on Netflix and zoning out. This is such an amazing retrograde, this Mercury retrograde, to be like, how can I get back in nature, right? The Mercury trine Jupiter. How can I rearrange my schedule and make more time to learn a hobby, go in and figure out, how to create something, how to knit, how to grow, a plant in a garden, how to be able to reorganize my finances. Am I cutting back from time where I'm spending time on the internet and I'm dedicating some time to something that's important? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the woman who was on it was really interesting. She was basically saying, like, she's always hearing people say, like, I don't have enough time, and that when she really started turning her life around, it's when she realized that she was going to make the time for things that are important and like give it enough time for it to be able to have a significant effect on her life. And so she said, I decided I was going to pull out my calendar. I was going to pick one day once a week and say that one day, unless there is an emergency or somebody dies, I'm not changing this particular appointment that I have set in my schedule every week. That is the day that I am going and donating, time and services to this particular cause in my community. And she said I did it for 6 months. I did not miss a beat. Every single week I was donating time, I was donating services, I was working with people. And after 6 months, I asked myself, is it still fulfilling? And she's been doing this now, she said, for several years. And every single time it gets to a point where she goes, well, okay, I've done it for 6 months. If it's not fulfilling, I'm going to find something else. And that she started realizing that if she made the time for things that were the most important to her, she's feeling like she's living a more fulfilled life. She feels like she lives life that's more in balance. And it really got me thinking about this retrograde. And I was like, wow, I really feel like so much of this for people is about not making excuses and being like, instead of complaining about the things that are going wrong or complaining about the problems out in the world, be, the change that you want to see in the world. Make that commitment, make that time. And I feel like this is a wonderful time to do it. Yes, Sun in Virgo says it's time to serve. It's time to be of service, time to perfect something, clean something, go to the doctor, spend time in nature. Maybe focus on something that you can, that is possible for your schedule. Maybe you have to make some tweaks, but it will require a sacrifice, right? And rather than getting deep into the Pisces spiral of, well, the world's going to shit, nothing's working, what's the point? You know, I'm just gonna, you know, put my phone on airplane mode and just aimlessly watch television. What if you didn't do that? You know, what if you made the decision to pick something that you wanted to dedicate your time to and stick with it for 6 months? What kind of a difference not only would that make for you, but would that make for the world if everybody started doing that? And I think there's something to that. I'm hoping that enough people wake up when they start to see these transits and go, okay, things are going to go one of two ways, but I have the decision and the ability to make change. Whenever I find myself getting into like a bit of a rut, and I have found that, especially with Mercury retrograde for me in Virgo, it's my 12th house, I notice all my bad habits come back. Like I can be really good about my routine, getting up, you know, making sure I'm eating well, taking my supplements, working out. But right around Mercury's shadow, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to have the cookies, whatever. I am always quick to catch myself on it right around the time that Mercury is going retrograde, so that way I have the opportunity to turn it around. And I'm personally going to use this retrograde, I think, to do more of these things that I was talking about, find something that I'm really committed to and like make that commitment for the next 6 months and actually see how that is going to better kind of fill my schedule or fill my time. And I'm going to be better about not making, you know, some of these excuses for not doing it, because I know that in 6 months' time, when we're getting into Pisces season, and we're going to see, you know, the Sun and Mercury come into conjunction with Saturn, and we're going to see Venus go through there in conjunctions to Neptune, we're going to see the effects of whether or not we actually made good use of this time, right? If you guys haven't already started looking at the astrology for next year, I would take a look, because there's going to be some interesting stuff that's going to happen, because Pisces season is right around the time that the North Node Chiron conjunction is going to happen. And health-related things are going to be such a huge topic that I know now in like Capricorn season is going to be a good time to kind of get the show on the road with some of that. All right, so you'll feel the square. Things are going to feel a little discombobulated maybe on the 24th as you see the moon come into a square with the sun and then eventually Saturn, which is a little bit more difficult to emotionally relate. The good news is that as the moon keeps going through Sagittarius, it's eventually going to come into a trine with Venus. So it will have some kind of outlet, right? So we see the moon keep moving through. It's going to trine Venus, it looks like early morning on the 25th. Okay, so that's going to be in the morning here. So this is Friday. And something else that we're going to be seeing here is that then the moon's going to start coming into a T-square with Neptune and Mercury. Not a fan of the astrology of Friday. This seems quite hectic, confusing. So in the later portion of the day, so like early evening, the moon in Sagittarius squares Mercury. Kind of important because Mercury is what we focus on during Virgo season. So 21, conflicting information revolving around global events, legal events, travel events. You know, we're going to see some kind of reworking of something in terms of travel anyway, or delays with travel. I do anticipate these mutable squares are going to be issues involving weather. I think we're going to see some extreme weather. News involving weather and airplanes, I definitely think is going to be coming up here. And moon square Mercury is just like a difficult time emotionally relating, and like something is changing in the Mercury area, which is impacting our ability to kind of be more free, right? And then we're going to see the moon come into a trine with the North Node. But lots of miscommunication, because the moon's also starting to come into a square with Neptune. So it's kind of like that, I don't know how I feel and like what's going on. Not a fan of those mutable squares. So that's pretty much in the air mid-Friday on. We'll pick up a trine to the North Node in the evening, and then the square is going on Friday evening. So not a fan of traveling Friday night, personally. That's just me. I feel like there's going to be setbacks and delays also because the Sun opposed Saturn is setting up, right? So then we get to Saturday morning. This is the 26th. And in the morning hours, we see the moon enter into Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. Saturn is retrograde. And then boom, Sun in opposition to Saturn. Is there some kind of delays going on with, you know, traveling? Maybe. By vehicles? Maybe, because this is a 3. So it can be cars. It can be short distance travel, just getting around town, noticing there's more traffic, noticing there's more limitations on the roads. But I think that the Sun in opposition to Saturn is really going to be touching on the fact that, you know, the moon is coming into a conjunction pretty soon with Pluto. So we're going to see some pretty dramatic changes and transformations going into the early following week. I think the Sun in Virgo, which wants to assist, wants to help people, wants to be there, wants to serve, is being limited. So limitation of communication, sharing of media. You know, 3s deal with Gemini, so social platforms, things involving posting. I think we're going to be hearing more about potential overreach, right? And things that are being like monitored in terms of freedom of speech. And when Mercury goes retrograde too, I think we're going to see changes that are going on with social media sites, things that are, you know, kind of changing also in regards to information or facts. There can be a revising of things or some kind of review. But I'm not thrilled about Saturday either, because the Sun opposed Saturn just feels like no matter what you do, you're like, ugh, you know, this energy is like kind of going through tar. You're just feeling like you're having to kind of just drag yourself around all day. And we will be definitely feeling some limits. The positive is that the moon and the Sun will trine each other, and the moon will sextile Saturn. But I see this as kind of like a, well, we're slowing this down for safety, or, you know, we're slowing this down because we want to monitor the situation. And I'm wondering, just with what I've been hearing in the news, like they've issued a no-fly zone over Hawaii, so people can't be getting aerial footage. They're still being really kind of weird about letting, you know, certain people in. Apparently, they're making some residents file like for passes to be able to come and go in and out of that area, which makes me kind of wonder, like, why are they doing that? That's kind of strange. And I think this is going to potentially be about just information coming out about people being able to kind of like move around more so freely. I'll just leave it at that. Still, we're feeling the Mercury-Neptune opposition, so things are going to feel a little hazy until we get closer to the beginning of October anyway. Now, all day, the moon's going to keep moving through Capricorn. So it'll be in a trine into the evening hours. And then that's going to take us into Sunday, which is the 27th. So the Sun Saturn is going to be separating on Sunday. And then we see Mars enter into Libra, which is a pretty big deal. Sunday's an interesting day. So we've got a trine between the moon and Capricorn, which is going to focus, like I said, on Saturn, which is responsibility, work, dedication, getting things done. You're going to be hearing more about what's going on, you know, with governments and leaders. And the moon trine Jupiter is generally positive. It can be, you know, this is a lot of work, but it could produce something that could be really beneficial. So you may find yourself like getting things done or preparing for the week ahead when the moon is in Capricorn on Sunday. We're also going to see the moon start building into a trine with Mercury. So that helps us kind of like delegate tasks and communicate and make changes. And then we'll see the moon start coming into a trine with Uranus. So it's like, Sunday's my day off. I don't know about you guys. That's why I filmed this a little bit early. But yeah, I kind of look at Sunday and I'm like, oh, that's a day where I could get a lot of stuff done. What about you guys? What do you think? You know, do you ever use astrology to kind of do that, even if it might seem a little unusual per like a regular schedule? This last week, as we had like the moon come through Virgo and Mars come through Virgo, and it was trining Uranus and Pluto, super productive for me. Yeah, pretty much Wednesday, Thursday, I got a lot of stuff done. So I'm starting to really kind of work with these earth trines a little bit more personally. So when we see these trines, it can be positive for preparing, planning, getting ready to kind of finish up odd jobs and things that we need to get done. Mars entering into Libra is a big deal because, like I said, Mars is the ruler of the North Node. So where Mars these last few weeks has been focusing on routine and dedication and commitment and refining things, now we've got Mars that's going to be going into Libra, which is currently where the South Node is. And it's moving into a sign that's associated with Venus. So it's kind of wonky to have the North Node ruler moving into the South Node sign. In particular, Mars is considered to be in detriment in Libra, which basically means that, it's going through a sign that it does not function as well. Traditionally, Mars is obviously associated with Aries as well as Scorpio. So when we generally see Mars in like Taurus or Libra, it's considered in detriment and it's exalted in Capricorn. Now, this particular transit of Mars in Libra is going to be from August 27th to October 11th. So we're going to have several weeks of having Mars moving through Libra. Essentially, with that North Node rulership, right? Mars being the ruler of the North Node, this is about really showing us where there can be relationships or partnerships or alliances or things that could help or hinder us when it comes to the direction of where we're going on a personal level. Now, an instinctual level too, because Aries is about instincts. Now, the North Node ruler is addressing the past, and it might be addressing past imbalances. It might be where we do too much for other people, where we are people-pleasing, where there's a lot of relationship action. So it could go one of two ways. Let me know if you have Mars in Libra. I'd love to know how it plays out for you and how it's aspected. But basically, detriment in astrology refers to a planet's placement in the zodiac sign that's opposite to the sign that it rules, okay? So it's opposite of Aries. And when a planet's in detriment, it's not comfortable in that sign, and it kind of operates with like less strength, so to say. So a planet sign of detriment is always located in the opposite sign, and it's thought to express its nature with difficulty and find a different, more unconventional way to express itself. So it's possible that, Mars, frustration, action, energy, conflict, sexuality, that being in the opposite sign is like if we are not working through our own personal frustrations, not working through our own wounds, Chiron, not, getting on the path of where we need to go, I could definitely see some people lashing out. I could see some people taking it out on other people and like not handling it appropriately, especially because Libra is a sign that deals with like mirroring things back to people. So, the other thing to take into consideration is that because it's in detriment, it can kind of act a little odd or unexpected. And, Libra represents the scale, so it can have a tendency to kind of like go to one extreme or the other. It can swing. And I think that, it's just not going to operate in a traditional fashion. And when I look at just the path of Mars, I'm going to get more into this in my video on Tuesday. It's not going to do much at all, actually. The last real helpful aspect that we saw was when Mars was in a trine to Pluto. So as Mars goes through Libra, it's going to oppose all of this Aries. It's going to quincunx Taurus. It's going to quincunx Saturn, and it'll eventually square Pluto. And it's going to conjunct the South Node. So as if the transit of Mars through Libra wasn't already challenging enough, and we may get to the point where Mars conjuncts the South Node and we have Libra eclipses in the fall, and we're like, that relationship's done, that didn't work. That's no longer, kind of feeling balanced for me. I think it's also mirroring the Venus retrograde. So now we've got Mars in a Venus sign, right? And we've got Venus in Leo, and it's retrograde. So it can also be talking about, where people have been back and forth with relationships, feeling the pressure and going through their own stress test with relationships to other people, we may see more actual conflicts and separation going on in certain relationships. But Mars is about action and drive and assertiveness. And Libra, on the other hand, is a sign that is associated with air, and it's about finding balance and harmony, and it's about diplomacy. So when Mars is in Libra, we can see pros and cons. I think if I want to look at this more positively, it can be bringing up opportunity for harmonious actions. So, with Mars in this sign, we might be really focusing on approaching tasks and challenges with a much more balanced perspective. It can be encouraging us to find the middle ground and avoid aggressive or confrontational tactics that can, definitely be positive, because it can be encouraging us to kind of work with other people and navigate conflict in a more diplomatic way. It's going to push us to strive for balance, because remember, still the North Node is, in Aries. So it might be giving us the opportunity to focus on fairness and justice. We may feel more compelled to fight for what we believe is right. And it's also going to be with a desire to maintain equilibrium and take into consideration other people involved. So that's a plus. I do think that some of us are going to feel encouraged to take a much more cooperative approach, to focus on collaborating well with other people, practicing teamwork, and be trying to achieve goals together. So we could see how the North Node ruler in the 7th house is like, help me help you. Like, how can we work as a team? How can we bring some of these new, goals into fruition together? We're definitely going to be a little bit more attuned to aesthetic things as well, because, Venus has that connection to Libra. So I could definitely see this as us taking more action when it comes to design, art, and beauty. And we may be more focused in how we're presenting ourselves, especially to other people or in relationships in general. But for me, I think that Mars going into Libra can represent the potential for like indecisiveness and procrastination. And this comes up because of, a desire to balance and consider multiple viewpoints. And sometimes that can lead to, a very kind of Libra-like indecisiveness. And, Libra likes to kind of weigh their options and kind of go back and forth. So it can cause a delay in making decisions, especially as we're seeing, Mars come into and in conjunct with Saturn. It might be a sense of like needing to think things over and learning not to just jump into things, because you could see people jumping into relationships with Mars and Libra as well. But I'm hoping that it's also, going to give us the opportunity to be focusing more on, diplomacy. Yes, I could see this as being a little bit more charming, especially because, Libras are known for that. It can be about being persuasive in communication, and it can give us the opportunity to diffuse situations, I think, with a much more diplomatic approach. I'm hoping, but I know that there's not going to be a lot of aspects that is going to support Mars. Maybe when you're seeing like the moon go through there, perhaps, but nothing's really going to get entirely too close to Mars. There's not going to be a lot of support. Obviously, the people who this is going to affect the most: Aries rising, because you're ruled by Mars; Scorpio rising, because you're ruled by Mars; and Libra rising charts, as well as Libra sun and moons. I do go through this in my horoscopes, so if you guys want to go and check out your horoscopes for August, please check that out, because I do touch on this transit. You can look at this from whole perspective, from whole sign, because it's entering 0 degrees and it's going to be there for several weeks before it goes into Scorpio. I, for one, this is just my opinion, I'm not wild about this transit. I do think that we're going to see Mars go through Scorpio after this, and that's definitely going to be helpful because we have Mars going through one of its ruling signs. I do know that it is still going to feel a little chaotic because of oppositions that are going to be taking place to Jupiter and Uranus, and it's going to feel a little topsy-turvy in November. Keep in mind that we just had a new Venus star point. So the Sun-Venus conjunction at 20 degrees of Leo, that will get triggered with a new moon in Scorpio with Mars. That's also going to be, getting triggered down the road when we have transits that go through Aquarius. So that square is going to bring more pressure revolving around the Venus retrograde. And then, you know, down the road as we get in closer to the new year, when Mars goes into Capricorn, and I'm actually putting a video together on this right now, that I'm excited for, because, you know, having the North Node in Aries means that when Mars goes through its ruling signs, or when it's in its exaltation, Capricorn, that's when you're going to see the most power. So I'm saving a lot of my Mars-related things for, you know, Scorpio season, Capricorn season, when it goes through those particular transits. I know it's going to get a little wonky with conjunctions to the South Node. But you can listen to your whole sign, or listen to where Placidus 0 degrees of Libra is. That's where that ingress is going to start. So if you listen to Placidus, it might be a different house. Keep in mind also, guys, that 0 degrees of Libra is one of the, you know, one of the world axis points, right? So we've got the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, which represent the solstices and the equinoxes. We're also going to see Jupiter turn retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. That's also a really pivotal point, because that is halfway through these seasons. So actually the 15 degrees of the fixed signs are significant as well. We've got Venus retrograding there. We've got Jupiter retrograding there. So there is a lot of like fresh starts that keep getting triggered with some of these transits. Now let me take you guys through just really quick the various 12 rising signs. I just want to tell you briefly where Mars is transiting per your rising sign. As a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer, and I'm going to be using the whole sign technique. So this is going to be the 12 rising signs for the tropical astrology whole sign to make the most out of my predictions. I recommend listening to your rising sign followed by your sun and moon sign. That's what you want to be listening to. All right, so let's go ahead and start here with Aries and Aries rising. What's going on, Aries? How are you doing? Let me actually make it look like Mars is in Libra, huh? There we go. All right, what's up, Aries? Obviously, this is important for you, Aries, because Mars rules your chart, okay? So wherever Mars goes, it's important because it affects you. You can be Mars. Mars rules your first house, which is all about your action, your drive, and your body. You've also got Mars as the ruler of your 8th house, which is about change and transformation. So this is going to be about you initiating some kind of personal change and transformation with what? Relationships. Pros and cons. The pros is if you're wanting to do more with other people, if you're wanting to meet people, if you're wanting to date, if you're wanting to get physically active, maybe find a trainer, look for a partner, initiate, you know, new services, because the 7th house can be business with other people. It can be your marketplace. It's not a bad transit, right? What I will remind you is that your 7th house Lord, Venus, is retrograde in the 5th. So there's like a reevaluating, you know, some kind of romantic connection, a dating situation. You may, with Mars in your 7th house, you know, be really adamant about connecting or meeting someone. You might be really enthusiastic about someone, but you may also feel that there is more pressure coming from other people. And you want to watch as Mars starts coming into opposition with Chiron, coming into conjunction with the South Node, squaring Pluto. You know, could a partner show up and turn your whole world around? Sure. But it's important to realize that there's something that's being reworked about who you love, what you want out in the world, especially when it comes to your romantic relationships. But yeah, more action involving other people, and partnerships are going to kind of be like a big theme, which I would say anyway with, you know, Mars being in your 7th house, but we're going to have a solar eclipse there here in mid-October. You're going to see your 7th house Lord go direct here at the beginning of September. And yeah, just a lot of action that's going to be in the 7th house. Could it mean that also people from the past come back around? Possibly, because your 7th house Lord is retrograde. You're going to see conjunctions to the South Node. But I would imagine that if there's something speeding up very quickly, or too much togetherness, or not the right relationship, you may start to realize, may not necessarily be the right time, or I don't know if this is like for me. And you'll see this down the road as Mars starts making its oppositions and its squares. But nevertheless, take note of who shows up right now in your life, because they may want to be, participating in some kind of collaboration with you. This could also be like potential like clients as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be about relationships. Those of you guys who are in committed relationships, though, there can definitely be a lot more of committed relationship partners being a little antsy, needing a little bit of, independence right now. So I would just let them kind of do their thing, okay? Good luck. We got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's going on, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing Mars entering into Libra. It will be going into your natal 6th house. Taurus. So obviously for you, Mars rules your 12th house of the kind of hidden, subconscious, private spaces, self-undoing. It also has connections to your 7th house of relationships and partners. And it's going to be entering into your 6th house, where it will be spending some time. Now, Mars going into your 6th house, the pros is if you're wanting to get more active, if you're wanting to initiate a new job, if you're wanting to get a lot of things done, checked off your to-do list, if you're wanting to take some kind of action when it comes to organizing, cleaning something up, doing some kind of work with a partner, that can definitely happen here. I will say be mindful that Libra is a sign that inconjuncts you, so you can be a little bit more prone to accidents. Mars going through the 6th house can bring, accidents. It could be, especially with Libra being here, bumping into other people, having some tiffs with people at work, because the 6th house can be coworkers. There could be more action necessary revolving around supporting partners, taking care of pets, cleaning up, things like that. And Libra is other people. But it could make you feel a little agitated because Mars rules your 12th house. It also rules your 7th house. And so something to take into consideration is that your chart ruler is retrograde in the 4th right now. So you're reworking something about home and what you want your home to look like and how you want it to feel. And you're kind of reviewing something about like family matters, or you're looking at the past. And then you've got Mars going through the 6th house, which is like kind of like organization and getting things done. So I could see that if there is something changing in regards to a home or a living situation, you may be feeling like you need to hire somebody or employ somebody to come in, walk the dog, organize something, watch the kids, fix something in the house. What you want to watch out for is hidden enemies, unexpected enemies at work. And also watch out because you may have some situations with a partner, because this is 12th house to your 7th, where partners can be a little anxious. They can be a little frustrated. That's pretty much it. So just watch for that. But I think it's a good transit if you're wanting to get more physically active, and possibly in a way that's a little bit more elegant, right? So I could see some of you guys being like, I want to take a dance class, or I want to do something that's going to be more visually appealing for how I'm going to kind of be like working out. And this is also about putting all of the fine details into something. Mars likes it in the 6th house, I will say. It likes to have a cause to be focused on. So for all we know, it can be that you like taking care of some of these things. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? You're going to be having a Mars transit Libra in your natal 5th house. All right. So this is a sister sign. So if you are a Gemini rising, Mars going through the 5th house at some point will trine your ascendant, which is considered harmonious. Mars moving through the 5th house. Well, what's going to happen here? You've got your 11th house Lord, which is friends, goals, parties, association, and your 6th house Lord, which is work and, dedication, your habits and your routines, moving into your 5th house. So I feel like this is about you going, I want to have fun. I'd like to play more. I'd like to see my friends. I want to make some adjustments to my schedule. You may be feeling like there's more of like a competitiveness that's kind of going on. You may enjoy playing competitive games with partners. It can definitely be a time where there's more action going on in your love life or with dating. You may also be focused on, just kind of enjoying yourself with other people, and whether that's friends or romantic partners, that can definitely happen here. Kids can be a little bit more rambunctious with Mars going through the 5th house. There can definitely be like needing a little bit more support from partners, Libra, when it comes to handling issues involving the family. You're feeling like much more likely to take risks also with Mars going into your 5th house. I think about, Mars ruling the 11th, and it's really pushing you to focus on, finding ways to be creative and collaborate and have a good time with other people. The fact that it is trining your ascendant is, I think, really helpful, and sextiling your descendant is also great for relationships. So I do think that you're going to navigate this transit a little bit easier than some of the other signs. Good luck. For Cancer and Cancer rising, you are going to be seeing Mars move into Libra. It's moving into your natal 4th house. And as a heads up, I'm going to say this to all of the cardinal rising signs. You guys are definitely going to be feeling that pressure because it's either going to square or conjunct your personal placements. Cancer. So the 4th house is a house energy that you're familiar with because Cancer has connection to the 4th house. It has connection to the roots, to the home, to the family. Now, the 4th house represents these things. And it's interesting because Mars rules your 10th house of career and responsibility and status, or one of your parents. It also has connections to your 5th house, which deals with children, creativity, having fun, self-expression. But it can also be a house of drama. Now, word to the wise, Mars going through the 4th house, a really helpful remedy is have something to work on, have something to do. If you know that you need to install, a new light bulb, or you want to decorate something, or you need to, patch a hole in the wall, if you know that you need to remove the rugs and take them outside and beat them, to get all the dust out, do these things while Mars is in your 4th house, because it can keep you from having friction with people in your home. And this is like partners, roommates, relatives. Mars also can push, it can attack. So you may feel throughout this transit that people are really pushy about visiting you. Maybe they show up at your house. Maybe you're just feeling like neighbors are being loud, or people are constantly kind of knocking on doors, and you can get kind of agitated. I do think that for many of you, it can be about taking action revolving around the home. Like, I'm looking at a Mercury retrograde in your 3rd of movement and Mars entering into your 4th. So some of you guys might be like, I'm moving. Some of you guys might be having more communications with siblings or relatives, and you're going and you're visiting them with Mars going into the 4th house. I feel like I would be paying attention, especially if you have Cancer rising in the later degrees. So if you're like the last 5 degrees of Cancer, 25 through 29 degrees, towards the end of this transit, when Mars is squaring with Pluto in your ascendant, it can represent a turning point in a living situation or a relationship, because Libra is partners. So there can be some friction with partners or with people around the home. But I feel like if you have something to work on or something to do, especially creatively, because Mars rules your 5th, it can help offset some of this. Keep in mind, Venus is retrograde in your 2nd house, so it doesn't want you to spend a lot of money on a renovation or on a move. It doesn't want you to buy a bunch of expensive furniture. It just wants you to maybe start planning, because, Libra is an air sign. So it can be about kind of figuring out with swatches and other things, what could work, where could we move things, and being a little bit more conservative, at least until Venus goes direct, when it comes to spending money at home. Okay? Good luck, Cancer. So we've got Leo and Leo rising. You are going to be experiencing Mars entering into your natal 3rd house. The good news is, Libra is a sign that naturally sextiles you. So air and fire fuel each other. So I do feel like you may navigate this a little bit better. Mars going through your 3rd house is going to be bringing up the theme of communication. And, Mars speeds up, it goes quickly. So you may be having to communicate more. You might be spending more time on phones. You might be running errands around more. You may be more likely to be speeding or rushing as well. So take your time. Mars traditionally rules your 9th house of foreign travel, education, and beliefs, as well as your 4th house of home and family. So you've got Mars going into your 3rd house. Could you be, planning going on a trip and spending more time on the computer, trying to plan a trip to a foreign place? Sure. Could you be trying to quickly process documents or, something involving education? Yes, I could see that as well. Being that Mars rules your 4th house, there can be much more challenging conversations with relatives. The 3rd house can be siblings or aunts, uncles, cousins. You may also find that your mind is going like a mile a minute, and you're just really trying to get a lot of like communication and like busy kind of work finished. With Mars ruling your North Node, though, in the 9th, I feel like you may be quickly trying to agree to something, maybe quickly trying to learn a language, and maybe just feeling like you want to get up and like move around and walk around more. Libra's an air sign, so it wants to kind of float around a bit. So if you're feeling kind of anxious, it would be a good idea to consider like journaling or to go for a walk, go for a drive, things like that, just to kind of clear your mind, and watch for potential friction that can come with siblings or potentially even with neighbors. That can definitely be a theme during this transit, okay? Good luck, Leo. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you're going to be experiencing Mars transiting in the sign of Libra. It'll be moving through your natal 2nd house. Hide the credit cards, okay? Mars going through the 2nd house definitely can be a time where you're spending more. 2nd house is personal possessions. This can be you going after something you want, whether this is a luxury item, or this can be feeling hungrier than usual, wanting to consume more. This can also be about you wanting to pursue money that may potentially be owed to you, having access to other people's money. Now, Mars traditionally rules your 3rd house of communication, contracts, and your neighborhood or vehicles. It also has connections to your 8th house of joint resources, taxes, having access to other people's things. So when it comes to your financial situation, I feel like you're a little bit more bold in telling people you need to pay me back, or this is what you owe me, or negotiating terms, this is what I need. I'm thinking about Mercury being retrograde in your sign, and you're trying to rework how to approach or communicate with someone and get the point across, and almost like wanting to be direct, but realizing that you might be dealing with some people that might be like a little passive aggressive. And you're trying to figure out maybe like how to get something solid, right? The 2nd house is what you can hold on to be like, this is what I need from you. I don't know. I think you're definitely going to be fighting for what's owed to you, but I would be very careful knowing that as the North Node goes through the 8th house, you can accrue more debt. So if you're quick to open credit cards, spend money on things, just put money on it, just assuming I'll figure it out later. As soon as you're getting into, transits in your 8th house, that's going to have to be paid back. So be very mindful of that right now, especially if I look at the transits down the road in the spring of next year when you're having, eclipses there. It can be a time where, if you have been just charging everything, it can be a little bit more hectic. You've got a solar eclipse that's coming in your 2nd house as well here in just a few months. And so that can be a new beginning for your finances, but that can come after a bit of a spending spree. But the positive is that if something is owed to you, right, because Mars is in your 8th house, then you're going to fight for it and be like, this is what I need. So really taking action, I think, revolving around focusing on investing in yourself and knowing what you need and standing up for your values and establishing healthy self-esteem. Good luck, Virgo. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You will be experiencing Mars going into your sign. Mars traditionally rules your house of relationships. It also traditionally rules your second house of money and possessions. All right, Libra. Libra sun, moon, and rising. Okay, so you want to pay attention and maybe watch the video that's going to come next week when I take you through the particular transits. Really for Libra rising though, you know, for starters, Mars being in the first house is a particularly strong placement. Mars responds very well in the first, 8th, and 10th houses. So even though, you know, it moving through the sign of Libra can be kind of like indecisive and like not knowing how to make decisions, I feel like Mars going through the first house for you is actually a pretty strong transit. Now, it can go one of two ways. First of all, you need to have an outlet for some of this stuff. Mars on the ascendant means that you can be reckless, you can be a little agitated, you're more prone to having fevers or rashes or temperatures, so be mindful of that. And it can mean that you can be a little prone to like lashing out. So you want to make sure you have an outlet. So Mars related things can be, you know, getting some exercise, making sure that you're getting some fresh air, right, Libra, making sure that you're also taking action revolving around what you want, what you need. Mars rules your money and your possessions. So you may be feeling like, okay, this is what I need, this is what I value, but it also rules your 7th house. So this can mean that kind of the opposite of Aries, where Aries are, you know, potentially provoking other people, Libra, other people are provoking you. And as Mars is moving through your ascendant, you perhaps are, you know, getting reactions from other people or vice versa. And like, yeah, people are kind of triggering you because Mars rules your 7th house. So in committed relationships, be mindful that other people are going to be kind of rubbing you the wrong way. This is a part of a bigger storyline of like Mercury going retrograde in your 12th house, and maybe you're kind of feeling like you need some space and perhaps wanting to rest and retreat a little bit. And the fact that you have your chart ruler retrograde, it's going retrograde in your 11th house, you're reevaluating your goals, and then you're going to have a solar eclipse here in October in your 1st house. And really, I think this is kind of like the turning point right now as this transit goes to the 1st house, where you start really focusing on what action you are taking. And you may find that as you're focusing more on yourself and your desire and your drives, it may not resonate so well with other people. Like there may be a sense of you realizing that you actually have to stand up for yourself, and other people may not like the fact that you're making some of these changes. Like I said, it's strong. You're going to want to watch more when this is coming into a square with Pluto, which can definitely erupt into some issues at home, and when it's opposing the North Node. And that may represent a time where there can potentially be separations in relationships or needing space from certain individuals. Good luck, Libra. Okay, so we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's going on, Scorpio? You have got Mars going into Libra. So this is important because Mars rules your sign. So you and Aries are definitely feeling this ingress. Let me know how you're doing with this. So Mars rules your 1st house of the self, the body, and the actions that you take. It also rules your 6th house, which deals with health, habits, routine, your office space, and being of service. And so we're going to see Mars go into the 12th house. And so in a way, you know, the 12th house is secretive, it's hidden, it's subconscious, it represents when you're sleeping, your bedroom. And Mars being in the 12th house, it can be a sexy time, right? It can be a time where you have more opportunity for relationship time, spending time, and having lots of opportunities for intimacy. It can also represent a time where you're working on something artistic or creative, especially if it's film related or something in regards to like editing or things that you have to make more beautiful. But the 12th house is self-undoing. So watching Mars go through your 12th house tells me that there can be some situation coming to kind of maybe a natural conclusion or a completion, perhaps, potentially with relationships. I think of like Mars coming into conjunction with the South Node, and that, you know, partners can be kind of like letting you know if you're in a relationship that there's something they need to kind of get off their chest. I think about the incoming eclipse at the end of October in your 7th house, which may be a part of a bigger cycle of what's been eclipses for 2 years with lots of changes in relationships. And Mars ruling your 6th house of health. So if you're going through some health challenges, if you're needing to make some changes with health, Mars in the 12th house is saying like you need to be working less, resting more. You need to be focusing on taking time off, allowing these energies to kind of settle before Mars comes into your sign, and then you're going to have more energy to go and kind of get things done and be able to kind of transform something, or just feel like you have the capabilities of being able to take action. It looks like, I'm just going back to my notes here, that'll be around October 11th, okay? So I know a lot of Scorpio risings are like, I can't take that much time off. I understand. But intermittent periods of not working so much or taking time to like do breath work, to stretch, to spend time with a relationship is actually needed. And I think that Mars in Scorpio is strong. Mars in the 1st house is strong. If you are more conservative with your energy levels now and you're focusing on, bad habits and things that can be kind of coming up and clearing them, traveling, maybe considering even like talk therapy. Libra can be other people. 12th house can be psychological, can be really helpful, and like having a sense of direction in, what actions you're going to be taking later in the fall. So secret enemies can be 12th house as well. So you can be having some issues with people in the workplace, or there can be some issues going on with a pet, where either a pet or a partner may potentially be needing some kind of health or medical assistance. The good news is you are Mars, so you might be quick to kind of jump into that and help them if need be. But take your health, both physical, mental, and spiritual, pretty seriously during this transit, because there's something that's going to definitely get cut out when Mars comes into conjunction with the South Node and squares Pluto at the end of this cycle. Good luck, Scorpio. For Sag and Sag rising, we've got Mars that's going to be moving into the sign of Libra, which is a friendly sign for you, Sag. It sextiles your sign, so it's lending positive energy. Mars is going to be entering into your 11th house, which is all about friends and socializing and, your community and getting together with other people. So lots of opportunity for socializing. I know some of you guys are going to say, I don't have the time because Mercury's retrograding in my work zone and I'm trying to figure out a living situation. But friends may actually come to your aid or your assistance in some way, okay? So Mars rules your 12th house of what is secretive, subconscious, or behind the scenes. It also rules your 5th house of creativity, children, self-expression, having fun. There can definitely be a little bit of overdoing it here, Sag, where it's like maybe if you've been kind of burning the candle at both ends, you might have some friends or people who want to get together and you're pulling some all-nighters. I could see that happening with Mars being in your 11th house. I do feel like it's going to bring action revolving around your relationship with other people and encouraging you to collaborate with like-minded people. So it's also a really good time for like networking and potentially connecting with people professionally. I liken the 12th house to a house of also self-promotion and the money that comes from work. So there definitely can be a sense of you promoting your services or trying to work with a group of people to drum up more money, so you could find that some of the twists and turns that are happening at work are actually beneficial because it might be bringing you more in terms of resources. I think you're going to see that with Mercury coming into a trine with Jupiter for sure. But yeah, just watch, because there can also be some friction that can be going on with some of your friendships as well. Mars can sometimes be a little bit of like a tiff. So it's not unusual with Mars in the 11th house that we've got like some pushy friends and you're like, I'm swamped, I've got work and life stuff going on, and they can get their feathers ruffled just a little bit throughout this transit. I like the fact that Mars rules your 5th house though, and I feel like it's about you wanting to go and spend time with other people, and it's going to bring you some kind of joy, and you may have something that brings you guys together creatively, going to shows with friends, going to, see, live music or something that really is going to make you feel like you're having a good time and being able to share that with a group of people. And if you're single with Mars trine your descendant, it is possible that relationships can enhance, the collaboration and hanging out with people socially, hanging out with friends could enhance the likelihood potentially of meeting somebody as well, okay? Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You are going to be experiencing Mars going through Libra in your natal 10th house. Same thing with all the cardinal signs. You are definitely going to feel a little bit of the pinch. And I'm really actually seeing this for Capricorn and Cancer, because you guys are already experiencing squares to the nodes. But, you know, Mars coming in is just really reinforcing that, right? So the 10th house. First of all, Mars is strong in this house, even though Mars doesn't always perform typically in the sign of Libra. I think Mars going through the 10th house is about working hard, definitely being a little bit competitive. It's about keeping that edge. You know, it does give you the opportunity to really push full steam ahead with relationships at work. So if you're wanting to bring in more support, if you're wanting to kind of beat out other people, if you work in like a sales position, if you're hoping to bring in lots of clients or recognition, if you're hoping also to get a job, I think Mars going through the 10th house can be positive for that as well. Now, Mars rules your 4th house of home, emotions, and family, but it also rules ends of situations. And Mars has connections also to your 11th house of goals. I look at this two different ways. You know, your 10th house Lord is retrograde. So some of you guys may already be experiencing a job change. Maybe it's that, you know, your employer is cutting back. Maybe it's that you're going, I want to do something different. My attention is going in a different direction. Maybe these things haven't happened for you yet, but, you know, Mars will eventually come into conjunction with the South Node. So I could see some of you guys going, I'm changing my job, or I'm changing my status. So if you've been single, maybe you're going into a relationship. Maybe if you've been, you know, not working for a while, maybe now suddenly you're employed. So that could happen. But it's the Mars conjunct the South Node for me at the end of the transit, which makes me wonder if you're going to very publicly remove yourself from a position professionally, or if you do have, unfortunately, a job change, or if there is a bit of a tiff with a parent or with a superior, that can happen as well. That's at the end of the transit, though. You will see Mars also come into a square with Pluto. So it does kind of look like you're like, I'm between a rock and a hard place. I need a change. You know, and if I make this change out in the world, it'll have some kind of impact or repercussion also for me at home. Mars rules home or the dominant parent. So it could be the mother or the father in the 10th house. And I wonder if this is about some kind of back and forth maybe that you're having with like a relative, or in regards to like a home or family matter. Could be like about an estate, because you've got Venus going retrograde right now through your 8th house. So, you know, some of you guys are going, well, I'm changing my relationship, or I am, you know, trying to get into my own home. And so I'm in the process of trying to qualify for a loan, or I'm separating. So I'm sorting out my finances with another person. One of these situations likely is to be happening, even if you don't see it quite yet, especially when Mars gets closer to the South Node. The truth is that the real moment of truth is, I think, going to be when Mars squares Pluto. So definitely consider watching that video. It's going to be closer to October before you really start to kind of see these changes. But I'll talk more about that in my video on Tuesday, okay? But if you're looking for a job, this is a good transit for it. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You are going to be experiencing Mars entering into Libra. This will be going through your natal 9th house. And so this is interesting because you are a fellow air sign. So you will have Mars trine your ascendant at some point, similar to Gemini. This can be giving you a little bit of extra oomph, some more power, being more capable of maybe making changes, being unusual, different, thinking about the future, all these Aquarian themes. The 9th house, you know, I think is giving you the opportunity to travel. It's giving you the opportunity to learn something new, to start practicing something new. It could be a language, right? Because Mars is connected to your 3rd. It can be new skills pertaining to your job, because Mars is about the 10th house. But if maybe you're traveling for work, maybe you are having to deal with like a law or a legal related situation. Maybe you're putting more focus or effort into your beliefs or your philosophy. Maybe you're focusing on like a advertising campaign for something, because the ninth house can be that. What do I have here? But primarily, you know, it can be about your relationships or your partnerships with like teachers or mentors, right? So I'm wondering, like, does somebody come in that start pushing you and encouraging you to do something different, to travel, to learn something new? And it is the beginning of what's going to be, I think, like learning to really reevaluate what beliefs serve you and what don't, and then eventually possibly, you know, making some changes to certain beliefs, which is going to initiate the North Node in your third house, which is, well, let me pick up a new book, let me follow a new, you know, podcast, or, you know, let me listen to some YouTube videos about a new belief system, which can kind of help me communicate better. So I definitely think that this being in a fellow air sign, it's going to be possibly a little bit easier for you. I know that Venus retrograde in your seventh, there's a lot changing in relationships right now, and the squares to Jupiter and Uranus have been how those relationship changes or fluctuations is also affecting you, your emotions, and your home. So one thing to take into consideration is the ninth house is like the bigger picture, you know, what life is all about, what we believe in, and like what spiritual practices we may have. So if you're in a season of change in your life right now, taking action, Mars, around these topics, and maybe praying or doing some kind of practice that's going to help you keep the faith, can be really helpful as you navigate some of these times where things are definitely changing. Great time for getting ready to travel, though, if that's something that you're thinking about doing. You may see that come through with the eclipses in the fall as well. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. You are going to be experiencing Mars going into Libra in your natal 8th house. Mars does well in the 8th house. It has a natural kind of connection to that house. So you are one of the signs that I do feel like can definitely benefit from this transit. Although I will say that Mars does in conjunct or quincunx your ascendant if you're a Pisces rising. And so it's interesting that the 8th house is a house that deals with changes, transformations, purging, you know, detoxifying, letting something go. So when planets go through the 8th house, that ruler, I guess the houses that are connected to that planet, they come through, like you see a definitive like change or transformation. So Mars rules your money, your possessions, your resources, your self-esteem. It also rules something about law, legality, travel, belief system. So the 8th house is where you know, people want to get paid or they want to get reimbursed. This is like when you get the bill from you know, the credit card company, when you have to pay every month, or like let's say there's something going on involving your taxes. This is where you have to kind of go and pay that. You know, partners who say, hey, you know, I need some resources, I need some support. The North Node is in Aries, and it's currently in your 2nd house, which means there's more of an emphasis on being more self-sufficient, making your own money, making your own way, like being able to really invest and focus on your needs physically and financially. So with Mars going through the 8th house, there can be this sense of people being like, well, can you help me? Can you give to me? Can you pay me back? You know, can we spend money on this thing together? Do you have access to other people's resources? Sure. This can be a time where like you find out that the bank gave you a higher credit limit, or that, you know, somebody who owed you money pays you back, and you're like, okay, now I have more money to spend, because Mars rules your 2nd house of your resources. There can be intensity, there can be some changes or transformations in regards to relationships, Libra, and how you are in terms of your intimacy with another person. Mars also has connections, like I said, to your 9th house. So some of you guys might be saying, well, I need to travel, you know, let me put it on my credit card. I could see that happening. And definitely like a lot in regards to sexual energy and intimacy here as well, because 8th house can be more about intimate connection and that merger with another person. Mars is a sexual planet, and Libra can be another person. Obviously, like a Mercury retrograde in your 7th, there can be a lot of back and forth with somebody else going on right now, whether it's a client or somebody at work or a relationship. And I think Mars going into the 2nd house can also be bringing up Is this person making me feel safe? Are they being kind of pushy with their needs? What about my needs? And like, where are we having some issues relating? Because perhaps they're being a little bit demanding. So that can be coming up here as well. I feel like this is going to be fascinating going into, the next couple of months, because you've already had a solar eclipse in your second house here in April, and you're going to have a solar eclipse in Libra in the 8th house, where it's really kind of bringing attention to what is and is not working. If someone or something potentially needs to be cut off, if you're giving too much in a relationship, Libra, if you're giving too much in a financial situation, are you paying too much interest on a credit card? Is it time to pay it off and close the account? And I think just an reevaluation of just relationships and the give and take in general here. Still could be a sexy time. I like Mars in the 8th house. It can definitely enhance the potential for connections, especially people you might meet while you're traveling, or if you're going away with someone. Yeah, you might be spending a little bit more money on travel, but you might feel like it's giving you that opportunity to open the door to meeting someone, or kind of helping work through some issues in a pre-existing relationship. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys in like navigating this next week. This should get you through Sunday the 27th. I'll be back here in this next week giving you guys some more content. I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct with my dates here, we are going to have, let me look. I think we're going to have horoscopes coming up in the next week or so. Maybe, we'll see. Maybe the 24th or the 31st, we'll see. Let me know. Do you guys want horoscopes early? Do you? We could go either way, we'll see. But we're definitely going to take Mars through Libra. I want to talk to you guys about some of the eclipse points that are going to get reactivated, which I think is going to be particularly intense. Remember, we had a solar eclipse in Aries in April, so Mars is going to oppose that and conjunct the South Node. So make sure you stay tuned throughout the week. Both on Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll have other videos coming up. This week, we're going to be doing live astrology readings on Friday, so you can catch me here at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Always check the community tab on Thursday. I post the link in advance, so if you guys want to get an astrology reading, you can sign up early so you don't have to wait as long. Or you can join my memberships if you want to join my memberships, because we take the level 3 members first. Let me know, how are you guys doing with these energies? How are you feeling? It's definitely coming to the end of summer, and it's gonna go off with a bit of a bang. I hope the beginning of the Mercury retrograde is positive for you guys, and you're kind of working through some of these retrogrades, kind of going with the flow of whatever the cosmos want to do with us. Try to stay open and flexible, and find ways to be productive throughout this next week. If you guys like my content, make sure you click the button below and you're subscribed. Don't forget to leave me your comments. Any thumbs up or interactions on the channel are super helpful. It helps the algorithm. It helps let other people know that my content is on YouTube. It helps me get to my goal of ultimately, I'm hoping 25,000 subscribers here pretty soon. We're getting close. Hopefully many more in the years to come. And you guys can always check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I have all the links below. If you look in the description box, you can go and see my booking schedule. I'm open for September and October sessions. I also have new reports available on my website. For $19.99, you can get a generated report that you can integrate into your digital calendar. So your iCalendar on your Apple devices, and all of your digital calendars. You get a file that's going to give you your personal transits and progressions for 12 months. I have that on sale right now. Gift cards, courses, and all that fun stuff is on there. So make sure you check it out. Sign up for my newsletter if you want to be alerted as to when I have new stuff that's coming out, especially this fall. All right, guys, so I'll leave it at that. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I will see all of you guys back here on Tuesday. And you guys, yeah, take care and take it easy this next week, please, okay? All right, I'll see you soon.